Welcome to CFO Squared, hosted by Karl Baker, with Baker's CFO Advisory conversations for business owners focused on growth, structure, cash flow, and building stronger businesses. Today's episode starts now.
Continuous improvement efforts. Hopefully, this session will give you a few tidbits. So, this session is really for a closely held business, small business. I like to use the word closely held business because it might be small in size, but it's not small in scope. Your business is important to you. I just try to avoid the use of the word small business. You're an important business. You're adding to the community. So we use the language closely held businesses, but you might not have the staff that IBM or Apple have. So you have a team that's manageable and you can count them on one or two hands. So small teams feel simple until they're not. There may not be formal roles. There may not be clear systems. And then everything depends on who notices first that something needs to happen. And that works for a while. Frankly, let's be real. When a business is getting started, every day you're encountering something new that you're needing to address. And so this works for a while until you get to a point where it doesn't work, where things start to slip, things start to fall behind, errors start to be made, deadlines start to be missed, whatever, bills aren't getting paid if it's in the finance realm. So small teams feel simple until they're not. So what do we mean by culture? Culture is the concept of how work actually gets done. If you've been watching my videos for a while, you hear me reference the way. What is the way we do our business? And I think about that in my own business. And by the way, as we talk about this, I'm going to say that I try to pay attention to the things that I need to do in my own business. So I am not 100% perfect in the application of all of these principles that we'll talk about today in my own business, but I certainly try to pay attention to these. And I usually learn something from these in my own sphere of influence and the things that I'm doing in my own business. So I'm talking to myself just as much as to clientele and possible listeners here. So I think that's important to understand. So it is a truth that every organization has a way, and I call it the way that you do your business. It shows up in the way you make decisions or lack thereof, or timing of those decisions. Are you holding staff accountable? And that's not meant to be a micromanagement, negative connotative expression, but it's true that we ask staff members to do something and they need to follow the deadlines so that we keep our promises true with our clientele, with our customer base, with our vendors. So there is accountability, and the only way life works is if we all are willing to be accountable. What sort of communication? Is it clear? Is it vague? Is it passive aggressive? What sort of priorities are set? Does everybody know what those priorities are? So I think those are the things that collectively show up and define what an organization's culture is. I think it's also important to understand that as a business grows, the earlier you identify the importance of this and operate with the awareness of the importance of culture setting, the better off you'll be, because you'll start to scale. And without the awareness of culture, without the awareness of processes that are the byproduct of the culture setting, without that, you'll end up with chaos. And I just think it's important to put procedures, protocols, policies, documentation in place before the chaos ensues. And I've talked about that before, but the culture setting is to demand, insist on, pull people along into a culture of excellence in which in the early days, we're going to establish the way we do things, and we're going to memorialize those. We're going to set policies, procedures, roles. And the earlier you do that, before chaos ensues, the better it will be for you. It sometimes will feel like, and I actually am pretty decent in this in my own business, as we scale, as we grow. I am very aware of protocols that we need to put in place now that maybe doesn't feel like we really need it because of a lack of volume in ABC area. But as we grow, the importance of those protocols will come to light and will not resonate, but will just, I'll just stick with that, come to light, and will present itself. And the more you put these procedures in place earlier in the time frame, the better. So adding clarity, what is it that we're building? If everything matters, nothing matters. Defining success, defining priorities, defining what good enough is. That's an interesting phrase. If a person gets too hung up in excellence.
Thanks for listening to CFO Squared, hosted by Karl Baker with Baker's CFO Advisory. If you found this episode valuable, be sure to subscribe and share it with someone who would benefit from the conversation. We'll see you in the next episode.